One autumn morning, Squirrel stood on a hill overlooking oak forest. In his paws was a small jar. Inside were hundreds of leaves. Years of savings. Every extra leaf he earned. Every chestnut he didn't eat. Every little sacrifice. All saved for one dream. A house. Not just any house. A beautiful chestnut house beside the river. The kind of house Squirrel had imagined since he was little. And finally, he was almost there. Just a few more months. Just a few more leaves. Then the house would be his. Or so he thought. The next morning, everything changed. Squirrel walked into the market carrying a bag of leaves. He stopped immediately. The crowd was angry. The shopkeepers looked nervous. Prices had jumped overnight. Chestnuts, wood, tools, even honey. Everything cost more. At the entrance to the market stood a giant new sign. Import tariffs now in effect. Squirrel stared at it. What is a tariff? Far beyond Oak Forest was Chestnut Valley. A land covered in chestnut trees. The rabbits living there grew more chestnuts than they could ever eat. So they sold them to Oak Forest. The most famous merchant among them was Rabbit. Every week Rabbit arrived with wagon after wagon of chestnuts. The chestnuts were delicious. The prices were low. Squirrels loved them. Not everyone did. Bear hated them. Bear owned one of the largest chestnut farms in Oak Forest. Every year he worked harder. Every year Rabbit sold more chestnuts. And every year Bear lost more customers. One evening Bear stood alone in his warehouse. Thousands of unsold chestnuts surrounded him. If things continued like this, his family's farm might disappear forever. The next day Bear visited the Council of Oak Trees. We can't compete. The imported chestnuts are too cheap. If nothing changes, Oak Forest farmers will disappear. The council listened carefully. A week later they announced a new policy. Every chestnut entering Oak Forest would pay a tariff. An extra tax. The effects were immediate. Rabbit's chestnuts were exactly the same. Nothing about them had changed. But now they cost more. Much more. For the first time in years, Squirrel started buying from Bear again. Business exploded. Bear hired workers, expanded his farm, repaired old buildings. Life was good. Squirrel wasn't so lucky. The chestnuts he bought every week cost more. The wood needed for his dream house cost more. The tools needed to build it cost more. Every time he counted his savings, the house seemed farther away. Not closer. Months passed. Bear became one of the loudest supporters of tariffs. Whenever someone complained, he smiled. Tariffs saved my farm. Tariffs saved local business. Tariffs work. The council agreed. Tax revenue poured into the treasury. Everything seemed perfect. Then came the surprise. One morning Bear rushed into the council chambers. Panicked. Furious. Terrified. My harvest is in danger. The council was confused. What happened? Bear pointed at a broken machine. My chestnut sorter stopped working. Where are the replacement parts? The council checked the records. The parts came from Chestnut Valley. The tariffs had made them expensive. Then something worse happened. Chestnut Valley stopped exporting them altogether. Bear stared at the machine. Without it, he couldn't process his harvest. Without processing, he couldn't sell. Without sales, he couldn't survive. For the first time, Bear realized something. The rabbits of Chestnut Valley weren't just competitors. They were also suppliers, partners, customers, part of the same system. Meanwhile, Rabbit was struggling too. Sales had collapsed. Warehouses overflowed. Workers lost jobs. Merchants demanded action. Soon Chestnut Valley responded. If Oak Forest taxed chestnuts, Chestnut Valley would tax honey. If Oak Forest taxed honey, Oak Forest would tax lumber. Then tools. Then wagons. Then rope. Then everything else. Back and forth. Back and forth. The trade war had begun. A strange thing happened. Bear lost money. Rabbit lost money. Many businesses lost money. And Squirrel? Squirrel watched the price of his dream house climb further and further away. The animals who started the fight were trying to protect themselves. But the consequences spread through the entire forest. 1 year later, Squirrel returned to the hill where he used to count his savings. The river was still there. The trees were still there. The dream house was still there. But now it cost nearly twice as much. Squirrel opened his jar. He had more leaves than ever before. Yet somehow, the house felt farther away than when he started. As the sun set, Squirrel looked toward the market. Bear was still working. Rabbit was still selling. The council was still debating. Everyone believed they were doing the right thing. Everyone had their reasons. And maybe that was the hardest part. There were no villains. No monsters. No evil squirrels. Just different animals trying to protect their own future. Sometimes helping themselves, sometimes hurting others, and sometimes doing both at the same time. That night, Squirrel learned something important. A tariff is just a tax placed on goods coming from another place. But its effects rarely stop at the border. Like a falling acorn creating ripples in a pond, the consequences spread much farther than anyone expects. And often, the first animal to notice is the squirrel standing in the market, wondering why everything suddenly became more expensive.
Welcome to your brand new guide to the global economy, where finance meets technology. We make it simple, demystifying trade, inflation, and markets. Subscribe to Acorn World today.